How can a good God allow suffering?
I'm not a Christian. I think I remain quite thoroughly agnostic, which is one of the reasons it's quite difficult to interrogate my beliefs. But one of them would be the problem of evil.
Oh, it's the hard question for any worldview.
Because it's the obvious point. It is the argument.
Yeah.
And it's been discussed ad nauseum.
Why did God create war? Why does God create murder? Why does God create all the horrific things we see in the news, school shootings? Why would God create a mind that acts in that way?
The more I look at the universe, just the less convinced I am that there is something benevolent going on. So if your concept of a creator is someone who's all powerful and all good, and I look at disasters that afflict Earth, you look at this list of ways that life is made miserable on Earth by natural causes. If there is a God, God is either not all powerful or not all good.
As a defender of the Christian faith, one of the most difficult questions to answer is, how can a good God allow suffering? The atheists think that just because this is an admittedly difficult question to answer, then that must mean that God doesn't exist. It's difficult to answer, sure, but it's not impossible. And to tell you the truth, it's not that difficult either. It's just highly nuanced. The fact that we suffer is actually proof that God does exist. Yeah, you heard me right. Let me explain by asking you a question. How many of you out there actually take the time out on a daily basis when things are going your way to thank God for all the blessings He's given you? And I don't just mean saying thank you to the universe superstitiously and half-heartedly. I mean actually talking and praying with God, with humility and vulnerability. Some of you probably do actually take the time to thank God for what you have, but I'm willing to bet that the majority of you don't think about God much, if at all, when things are working out for you. It is only when things start to go a little sideways in your life that you become bitter and start to lash out at the God you hardly once thought of when things are going your way. The point I'm making here is the irony of the atheist argument. That is, it is actually when the world is devoid of suffering that God doesn't exist. You see, if things were always good in your life, and you never suffered at all, and you never took the time to thank God for His grace, you are, for all intents and purposes, living in a world where God doesn't exist. At least not to you. Not until things go wrong and you need someone to blame. Thus, it is through suffering that we come to know God, and vice versa. The word excruciating is an adjective that means intensely painful. Or another way to put it, excruciating is peak suffering. What is particularly interesting about this word is that it refers directly to crucifixion. Ex cruce or crux means from the cross. So Jesus, by being crucified, experienced peak suffering, something so intensely painful that they made a word for it. A word that almost makes you want to squirm as you say it. Excruciating. So as you can see, it is suffering that connects us with God, not what separates Him from us. That's a choice that you make. I've made sure that whenever I meet Jesus, He will recognize my voice right away. A voice that He hears constantly, whether things are going well for me or not. And if they're not, I know His mercy is close by. The phrase, "be not afraid," is in the Bible 365 times, one for each day of the year. How many times do we have to read it before we truly believe it? God knows we're stubborn and prideful, but He also has faith in us that we will eventually get it. So no, the fact that the world is full of suffering does not prove that a good God does not exist. It is suffering that brings us closer to Him. And through His ultimate act of sacrifice, God Himself, suffering like us, excruciatingly, He meets us where we are. In all other religions, it is man that strives after and reaches for God, mostly in vain. In Christianity, on the other hand, God comes down to meet us on our level. So how can he allow suffering? He understands suffering and experienced it on a level most of us can't even fathom. But he also gave us free will. Without giving us free will, then he can never truly know if we love him. It has to be our own choice to worship him. Furthermore, it is because he is a good God that he leaves the choice to us. Love that is forced is not real love. God, who is love, knows this better than anyone. By freely dying an excruciating death, he understands our suffering. In a world where free will exists, suffering is inevitable. But love cannot exist without free will. So for a world to have love, it must also have suffering. Perhaps this is why both love and suffering are so good at revealing God to us.